I thought I was marrying a woman. I didn't know I was marrying an entire operation. Her mother smiled at me every morning and robbed me blind every afternoon. 475,000 pounds, gone. And my wife? She knew the whole time. I need to tell you how this happened. Not because I want sympathy, not because I'm looking for justice, but because I need someone to understand how a man my age, a doctor who spent 40 years diagnosing problems in other people, could be so blind to what was happening in his own life. I'm 72 years old. I've seen death, disease, human suffering in forms most people can't imagine, but nothing prepared me for this. Nothing prepared me for the day I realized the woman I married, the family I thought I joined, had been working against me from the very beginning. My name is Ivan Petroff. I was born in Moscow, trained in medicine in St. Petersburg, and spent most of my career working in London. My late wife, Anna, died 5 years ago from pancreatic cancer. We had 38 years together, no children, just us. When she died, I thought I'd died too. I went through the motions. I saw patients. I attended medical conferences. I had dinner with colleagues, but inside, I was hollow. I was functioning, not living. Every night I'd come home to our flat in Kensington, and the silence would crush me. Her perfume was still in the bathroom. Her books were still on the nightstand. I couldn't move them. I couldn't throw them away. So I just existed in that museum of our life together, waiting for something I couldn't name. Then I met Valentina. It was on one of those dating websites for professionals. I know how that sounds. A 72-year-old Russian doctor on a dating app. But loneliness does strange things to pride. I created a profile. I was honest about my age, my background, my situation. I wasn't looking for adventure. I was looking for companionship, someone to have coffee with, someone to talk to at the end of the day. That's all. Valentina's profile said she was a nurse in Manila, 38 years old. She wrote that she valued family, faith, and helping others. Her photo showed a woman with kind eyes and a genuine smile, not the filtered, posed pictures I saw on other profiles. Just her, in scrubs, standing outside a hospital. Something about that simplicity spoke to me. We messaged for 3 months before I flew to Manila to meet her. Those conversations felt real. She asked about my work, my late wife, my life in London. She told me about her patients, her mother, her dream of one day working in a hospital with better resources. She never asked for money. She never hinted at needing help. She just listened. And after 5 years of talking to no one, that listening felt like oxygen. When I landed in Manila, she was waiting at the airport with a handwritten sign that said, Dr. Ivan, and a bouquet of sampaguita flowers. She explained they were the national flower of the Philippines, a symbol of purity and devotion. I should have known then. I should have recognized the performance. But I didn't. I was too grateful to be seen, to be welcomed, to matter to someone again. You look exactly like your photos, she said, taking my hand. I was worried you'd be different in person. I'm just an old man, I said. You're not old. You're experienced. That's different. She smiled. Come, my mother is making dinner. She's been cooking all day. That first dinner at Maria's house in Quezon City changed everything. The table was covered with dishes I couldn't name, adobo, sinigang, lumpia, rice in a massive pot in the center. Maria, Valentina's mother, greeted me at the door with open arms. She was 62, but she moved like someone 20 years younger. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore a simple floral dress. She took both my hands in hers and looked directly into my eyes. Anik, she said, son, welcome to our home. You are family now. I felt something shift in my chest. I'd been called many things in my life, doctor, husband, colleague, but no one had called me son in 50 years. My own mother died when I was a young man. Hearing that word, in that moment, broke something open inside me. I actually felt tears in my eyes. Thank you, I managed to say. Thank you for having me. Dinner lasted 4 hours. Maria told stories about Valentina's childhood, about her late husband who died when Valentina was a teenager, about the struggles of raising 3 children alone. Valentina's younger brother, Ernesto, was there too, quiet and polite, nodding along to his mother's stories. I watched the way Valentina translated for me when Maria spoke in rapid Tagalog. I watched the way she touched my arm when she laughed. I watched the way Maria's eyes softened when she looked at me. This was what I'd been missing. Not romance, not passion, but belonging. A place at a table where people wanted me there. After dinner, Maria walked me to the door. She held my hand again, her grip surprisingly strong. I can see you are a good man, Ivan, she said. A man who has known loss. A man who has given much to the world. She paused. I hope you will let us give something back to you. You already have, I said. This dinner, this welcome, it's more than I expected. She smiled. This is just the beginning. You know, Ivan, I have always believed that people with gifts, people with resources, people like you, are put on this earth to help others. Have you ever thought about that? About using your medical knowledge, your experience, to help the community here? I'd like that, I said without thinking. I'd like that very much. We will talk more, Maria said. But know this. You are not alone anymore. You have us now. You have family. I floated back to my hotel that night. I called my old colleague, Dr. Arjun Mehta, in London. He'd been my closest friend for 20 years. Arjun, I think I've found something real here, I said. Ivan, be careful, he said. You're vulnerable right now. Grief makes us see what we want to see. This is different. These are good people. They welcomed me like I was one of them. Just slow down, get to know them, don't make any major decisions quickly. But I didn't want to slow down. For the first time in 5 years, I felt alive. I felt needed. I felt like I had a future that wasn't just waiting to die. Over the next 6 months, I flew back and forth between London and Manila. Each visit, Valentina and I grew closer. She never asked for anything. She never pushed. She just gave. Her time, her attention, her affection. When I was in London, we'd talk for hours on video calls. When I was in Manila, she'd take me to markets, to churches, to beaches. She introduced me to her friends. She took me to her hospital and showed me the conditions they worked in, the lack of equipment, the overcrowded wards. This is why I became a nurse, she said one day. Not for money, not for status, but to help people who have nothing. You're remarkable, I said, and I meant it. One night, after a quiet dinner at a restaurant overlooking Manila Bay, I asked her to marry me. I didn't have a ring. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I didn't want to lose her. Valentina, I know I'm not young. I know I can't give you the life a woman your age deserves, but I can promise you loyalty. I can promise you respect, and I can promise you'll never be alone. She cried, real tears. She took my hands across the table. Ivan, I don't need youth. I don't need excitement. I need exactly what you just offered. I need someone who sees me, who values me, who won't leave. She squeezed my hands. Yes, I'll marry you. We married 3 months later in a small ceremony at Maria's house. Father Domingo, the local parish priest, officiated. Maria cried through the entire service. Ernesto stood as my witness, though he barely looked at me. I thought he was just shy. After the ceremony, Maria pulled me aside. You have made my daughter so happy, she said, and you have given me hope. Hope that there are still good men in this world. I'll take care of her, I said. I promise. I know you will. And we will take care of you too. You are our family now, completely. She paused. Ivan, I've been thinking. You mentioned once that you wanted to help the community. I have an idea. Something that could change many lives. Tell me, I said. Let's talk tomorrow. Today is for celebration. But I couldn't wait. That night, after Valentina fell asleep beside me, I lay awake, thinking about possibilities. Medical missions, free clinics, health education programs. I'd spent my entire career treating individuals. Maybe now I could do something bigger. Maybe this was why I'd survived Anna's death. Maybe this was my purpose. The next morning, Maria came to our apartment with a folder full of documents. Valentina made coffee and sat beside me on the couch while her mother spread papers across the table. I have been working with Father Domingo and some community leaders, Maria began. We want to start a medical charity, a foundation that provides free health care to the poorest families in Quezon City and the surrounding provinces. She looked at me. We want to name it after you, Dr. Ivan's Healing Hands Foundation. I felt my throat tighten. A foundation in my name. A legacy. What would it do exactly? I asked. Free clinics in the barangays. Medicine distribution. Scholarships for nursing students who commit to working in underserved areas. Health education programs. She pulled out photographs. Look at these families. They have nothing. No access to doctors. No money for medicine. Children dying from preventable diseases. The photos showed exactly what she described. Sick children, desperate mothers, makeshift homes. I'd seen poverty in my career, but never at this scale. How much would it cost to start? I asked. We've done the calculations, Maria said, pulling out a spreadsheet. To register the foundation, rent a clinic space, hire initial staff, and stock essential medicines, we'd need approximately £85,000. I didn't hesitate. I'll fund it. Valentina grabbed my arm. Ivan, that's so much money. Are you sure? I'm sure. What's the point of having money if I can't use it to help people? This is what I've always wanted to do. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She stood and embraced me. You are an angel, Ivan. A true angel. The families we help will pray for you every day. Your name will be blessed in this community forever. She showed me more documents. A notarized registration form. Letters of support from local officials. Testimonials from families who would benefit. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked real. I wired £85,000 that afternoon. Maria hugged me again. Valentina kissed me and whispered, You're changing lives, Ivan. My mother is so proud of you. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. I felt useful again. I felt like Dr. Ivan Petroff. Healer, not Ivan Petroff. Widower. The next week, Maria organized a celebration dinner to announce the foundation. The whole family was there. Valentina's cousins, aunts, uncles, people I'd never met. They toasted me. They thanked me. They called me a hero. Father Domingo gave a blessing. Maria gave a speech about how the foundation would transform the community. I stood there, overwhelmed, grateful, proud. But during dinner, I noticed something small. Ernesto, Valentina's brother, was sitting at the far end of the table. Every time I looked his way, he'd look down at his plate. He didn't toast. He didn't smile. When I tried to catch his eye to thank him for being there, he excused himself and left early. Valentina noticed me watching. Don't mind Ernesto, she said. He's always been awkward at family gatherings. He doesn't mean anything by it. I nodded, but something about his discomfort stayed with me. Just a flicker, just enough to plant the tiniest seed of doubt. But I pushed it away. I was happy. I was needed. I was home. And I wasn't going to let paranoia ruin that. 2 months later, Maria approached me again. We were having Sunday lunch at her house. Valentina was in the kitchen helping prepare dessert. Maria sat beside me on the couch, her voice quiet and confidential. Ivan, I need to talk to you about an opportunity, she said. It's sensitive. It's not something I'd ask if I didn't trust you completely. Of course, I said. What is it? There's a community rice cooperative that's struggling. They provide subsidized rice to over 500 families in the province, but they're on the verge of collapse. They need capital to buy the next harvest. If they fail, Those families will have nothing. She pulled out more documents, financial statements, letters from cooperative members, photos of the rice fields. They need £95,000. I know it's a lot, but if we can save this cooperative, we'll be feeding generations. I looked at the papers. Everything seemed legitimate. Signatures, stamps, official letterhead. Why are you asking me? Why not a bank? Banks won't lend to the poor, Ivan. You know this. These are farmers with no collateral, no credit history. They're invisible to the system, but not to us, not to people who care. And the foundation can't help? The foundation is for medical needs. This is different, but it's just as important. Food is medicine too, isn't it? She was right. I'd seen malnutrition kill more people than most diseases. If I could prevent that, shouldn't I? Let me think about it, I said. That night, Valentina climbed into bed beside me. My mother told me about the rice cooperative. I'm considering it, I said. Ivan, you don't have to do this. You've already done so much. No one expects more. But I can do more. What's the point of sitting on money when people are starving? She was quiet for a moment. Then she kissed my forehead. You're the most generous man I've ever known. Whatever you decide, I support you. I wired the £95,000 the next day. Maria cried again. She called me a savior. She said the cooperative members wanted to meet me, to thank me personally. But every time we scheduled a visit, something came up. The roads were flooded. The members had a family emergency. The timing wasn't right. I didn't push. I trusted her. I trusted Valentina. I trusted that I was doing good. Over the next 4 months, 3 more opportunities appeared. A scholarship fund expansion, £60,000, a medical equipment purchase for a rural clinic, £75,000, an emergency fund for families displaced by a typhoon, £50,000. Each time, Maria provided documentation. Each time, Valentina reassured me. Each time, I wired the money. I was hemorrhaging my savings, but I told myself it didn't matter. I'd lived simply my entire life. I didn't need luxury. I needed purpose, and this was purpose. But my bank account was dwindling. I'd gone from comfortable retirement to watching every expense. I stopped buying books. I canceled subscriptions. I started budgeting for groceries. The anxiety crept in slowly. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, mentally calculating how much I had left, how long it would last. One night, I couldn't sleep at all. I went to the living room and opened my laptop. I stared at my bank statement. I'd given away over £300,000 in 6 months. I still had savings, but not much. Not enough to sustain this pace. My phone rang. It was Dr. Mehta from London. Ivan, I've been worried about you, he said. You haven't answered my emails. I've been busy, Arjun. Good busy. Ivan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you giving away money? I hesitated. I'm investing in community projects, medical charity, food security. It's all legitimate. How much have you given? That's not your concern. Ivan, you're my friend. I care about you. Please tell me you're not being taken advantage of. I'm not. These are real needs, real people. Ivan, you're retired. You're on a fixed income. You can't fund an entire province. You're one man. I'm doing what I can, Arjun. That's all any of us can do. Please, just slow down. Have someone independent verify these projects. Hire an accountant. Hire a lawyer. Just make sure everything is real before you give any more. Everything is real. I've seen the documents. I've met the people. Have you visited the projects? Have you seen the clinics? The rice cooperative? Any of it? I went quiet. I hadn't. Every time I asked, there was a reason to delay. I will. Soon. Promise me, Ivan. Promise me you'll verify before you give another £1. I promise, I said. But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. Because the next morning, Maria called about another urgent need, and I didn't verify. I just wired the money. Because I wanted to believe. Because I needed to believe. Because the alternative, that I was being used, was too painful to consider. But the cracks were starting to show. Valentina was different, not dramatically, just subtly. She used to greet me with a kiss when I came home. Now she'd barely look up from her phone. She used to ask about my day. Now she'd give one-word answers to my questions. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she'd claim exhaustion, headaches, stress. I told myself it was normal. Marriage settled into routine. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to name it. One evening, I came home early and found Maria in our apartment. She was on the phone, speaking rapidly in Tagalog. The moment she saw me, she switched to English, mid-sentence. "Yes, I'll call you back later. Dr. Ivan just arrived." She hung up and smiled. "Ivan, I didn't hear you come in." "Who was that?" I asked. "Just a friend from church, discussing the charity." She stood. "I should go. I was just dropping off some paperwork for Valentina." But there was no paperwork on the table, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. I felt something cold move through my chest. "Maria, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Anik." "When can I visit the foundation? I'd really like to see the clinic, meet the staff, see the work we're doing." Her smile didn't falter. "Soon, Ivan. Very soon. We're just finishing some renovations. We want everything to be perfect when you visit. You understand? It's been almost 8 months." "I know. And it will be worth the wait. Trust me." She squeezed my shoulder. "You've been so patient, so generous. Just a little longer." She left. I stood in the empty apartment, my heart pounding. Why couldn't I visit? What were they hiding? Or was I being paranoid? Was grief and loneliness making me suspicious of good people? I didn't know anymore. I felt unmoored, lost. I wanted to call Arjun, but I was too ashamed. He'd warned me. He'd told me to slow down, and I hadn't listened. That night, Valentina came home late. She said she'd been working a double shift. She smelled like cigarettes, which was strange because she didn't smoke. When I mentioned it, she snapped. "Are you accusing me of something, Ivan?" "No, I just noticed. I work in a hospital. People smoke outside. The smell gets on my clothes. Is that okay with you? Or do I need your permission for everything now?" I'd never heard her talk to me like that. Sharp, defensive, mean. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't mean anything by it." She didn't respond. She just went to the bedroom and closed the door. I slept on the couch that night, and for the first time since Anna died, I felt truly alone. Not the loneliness of widowhood, but the loneliness of being with someone who didn't want you there. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. I decided to do what I should have done months ago. I went to the barangay office to verify the foundation's registration. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that the work was real. The office was small, crowded, hot. A woman at the front desk looked up when I entered. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for information about Dr. Ivan's Healing Hands Foundation. I need to see the registration documents." She typed into her computer. "Are you Dr. Ivan?" "Yes." Her face brightened. "Oh, you're Dr. Ivan. Sir, please wait here. I'll get my supervisor. She'll want to meet you." Before I could respond, she disappeared into a back room. A few minutes later, a woman in her early 40s emerged. She had the same eyes as Valentina, same smile. She extended her hand. "Dr. Ivan, I'm Carla, Valentina's cousin. It's such an honor to meet you. Tita Maria talks about you all the time." My stomach dropped. This was Valentina's family, of course. "Nice to meet you," I managed. "Please, sit. Can I get you water? Coffee?" "No, thank you. I just need to see the foundation registration." "Of course. Tita Maria's fundraising has been so successful. The community is so grateful." She pulled out a file. "Here's everything: registration, financial reports, donation records." I opened the file, and the world tilted. There were flyers, social media posts, fundraising appeals, all with my name, my photo, my medical credentials, Dr. Ivan's Healing Hands Foundation, bringing hope to the hopeless. They were soliciting donations from overseas Filipino workers, expat communities, international charities. The donation record showed over £220,000 collected in the past 8 months. None of it was money I'd given. This was external money, money raised using my name. Where did these donations go? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Carla looked confused. To the foundation, of course. Tita Maria manages all the finances. She's very organized. She sends quarterly reports to all the major donors. Can I see those reports? I don't have them here. You'd have to ask Tita Maria, but I'm sure she's already shown you everything. You're the founder, after all. I wasn't the founder. I was the face, the credential, the legitimacy. They'd used me to fundraise, and I'd never seen a single peso of it. My hands were shaking. Carla, where are the clinics? Where is the foundation operating? She blinked. I'm not sure about the specific locations. Tita Maria handles all the operations, but I know they're helping so many people. The testimonials we receive are beautiful. Have you seen the clinics? Personally? She hesitated. No, but I trust Tita Maria completely. She's a pillar of this community. I stood. My legs felt weak. Thank you, Carla. Thank you for your help. Are you okay, Dr. Ivan? You look pale. I'm fine, just tired. I left the office and walked. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. Hours passed. The sun set. I ended up in a park, sitting on a bench, staring at nothing. My mind was blank. I couldn't think. I couldn't process. I'd been used. My name, my reputation, my identity as a healer. They'd weaponized it to steal from other people. People who thought they were helping the poor. People who believed in the mission. And where had the money gone? Not to clinics, not to patients, to Maria's personal account. I was sure of it now. This wasn't charity. This was fraud. And Valentina knew. She had to know. You don't live with someone, sleep beside them, and not know they're running a scam. I don't know how long I sat there, maybe 4 hours, maybe more. Eventually, I stood and walked back to the apartment. Valentina was on the couch, watching television. She looked up when I entered. Where have you been? I was worried. I didn't answer. I went to my laptop and printed out screenshots, the flyers, the donation records, everything Carla had shown me. I walked back to the living room and dropped them on the coffee table in front of Valentina. Explain this, I said. She looked down at the papers. Her face didn't change. No shock, no confusion, just a slow, deliberate exhale. She picked up one of the flyers and studied it. Where did you get these? She asked calmly. From your cousin Carla, at the barangay office, where I went to verify our foundation, our charity, the one I funded with £85,000. She set the flyer down. Ivan, sit down. Let me explain. I don't want to sit. I want the truth. Did you know about this? Did you know your mother was using my name to fundraise? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it. The coldness, the calculation, the mask slipping completely. Yes, she said. I knew. The room spun. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. How long? From the beginning. From the beginning, I repeated. So everything, the foundation, the rice cooperative, the scholarship fund, all of it, lies. Not lies, opportunities. We saw an opportunity to help our community, and we took it. You stole from me. We didn't steal. You gave willingly. You wanted to help. We let you. I gave, based on false information, based on trust, based on the belief that the money was going where you said it was going. She stood. Ivan, you wanted to feel important again. You wanted to feel like you mattered. We gave you that. We made you feel needed, valued, loved. Wasn't that worth something? I couldn't breathe. Did you ever love me? Any of it? Or was I just a bank account? She paused, looked away. I cared about you. In my way. But my family needed help. You had money. Lots of it. It made sense. It made sense, I echoed. £475,000. That's how much I've given your family in less than a year. Does that make sense? Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't realized I'd been keeping track. Ivan, you're being dramatic. You have more. You're not destitute. That's not the point. The point is you lied. Your mother lied. You used me. You used my grief, my loneliness, my need to belong. You preyed on everything I lost when Anna died. We didn't prey on anything. We gave you a home, a family, a purpose. You should be grateful. Grateful. The word hit me like a physical blow. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my apartment. Get out now. She didn't move. Ivan, you're upset. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you've calmed down. I will never calm down about this. You destroyed me. Your mother destroyed me. And you watched it happen. You participated. You lied to me every single day. My voice broke. You let me believe I was loved. You were loved. In our way. Get out, Valentina. Now. She grabbed her purse, walked to the door, stopped. I'll come back for my things next week. No tears, no apology. Just a flat, business-like statement. The door closed. I stood alone in the apartment, listening to my own breathing. The silence was deafening. I walked to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't cry. I just sat there, hollow, empty, destroyed. This was worse than Anna's death. Because Anna died loving me. Valentina had never loved me at all. I'd been a mark, a target, a source of income. And I'd been too desperate, too lonely, too broken to see it. The next morning, I called Mr. Gregory Tan, a Filipino-British lawyer whose name I'd found online. I explained everything. He listened patiently. When I finished, he sighed. Dr. Petroff, I'm going to be honest with you. This will be very difficult to prosecute. Why? They committed fraud. They used my name without permission. They stole money from donors. Under Philippine law, proving fraud requires demonstrating intent to deceive at the time of the transaction. Your wife and her mother can argue that you gave the money voluntarily, that you were aware of the foundation's activities, that you approved of the fundraising. But I didn't approve. I didn't know. Can you prove that? Do you have emails where you explicitly stated you weren't aware? Recordings? Witnesses who heard you object? I went quiet. I had nothing. I'd trusted them. I'd asked no questions. What about the external donations? The money they raised using my credentials? That's more promising. But pursuing that would require cooperation from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the Securities and Exchange Commission, possibly the Department of Justice. These agencies are understaffed and overburdened. A case like this could take 5 years, maybe 10, and you'd need to hire Filipino lawyers, investigators, accountants. The legal fees alone could exceed what you'd recover. So they just get away with it? I'm not saying that. I'm saying the legal path is long, expensive, and uncertain. You could pursue it, but you need to understand the reality. He paused. Doctor Petroff, may I ask how you transferred the funds? Wire transfers. From my UK bank to accounts your wife's mother provided. And those were voluntary transfers? No one forced you? No. But they lied about what the money was for. Unfortunately, under UK law, if you voluntarily transferred funds and cannot prove duress or explicit fraud, your legal recourse is limited. The banks won't reverse the transactions. You can report it to action fraud, but recovery is unlikely. I felt my last hope crumble. So I've lost everything, and there's nothing I can do. You can try. I'll help you if you want to pursue this, but I won't lie to you about the odds. They're not good. His voice softened. Dr. Petroff, I'm very sorry. You were generous. That's not a crime. But generosity isn't protected by law. I thanked him and hung up. I sat in the apartment for hours, staring at the walls. 475,000 pounds. Gone. My reputation. Gone. My marriage. Gone. My belief in people. Gone. Everything I'd built in 72 years had been dismantled in less than one. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, I'd let it happen. I'd ignored Arjun's warnings. I'd dismissed my own doubts. I'd chosen to believe because believing was easier than being alone. A week later, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Dr. Ivan, this is Ernesto, Valentina's brother. Can we meet? I need to talk to you. Alone. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted nothing to do with that family ever again. But another part, the part that still needed answers, needed closure, agreed. We met at a small cafe far from Quezon City. Ernesto was already there when I arrived, hunched over a cup of coffee, looking nervous. He stood when he saw me. Dr. Ivan, thank you for coming. I sat across from him. What do you want, Ernesto? He looked down. I want to apologize, and I want to tell you the truth, the whole truth. I already know the truth. No, you know what happened. But you don't know how it started, how long it was planned. He took a breath. My mother started planning this over a year before Valentina met you. She found your profile on the dating site. She researched you, your medical career, your publications, your late wife, everything. She coached Valentina on what to say, how to act, what you'd respond to. My stomach turned. Valentina's nursing background? Not a coincidence. My mother knew you'd relate to another healthcare worker, that you'd trust her more because of it. He looked up, his eyes red. Doctor, Ivan, I tried to warn you. At the wedding celebration dinner, I couldn't look at you because I felt so ashamed. I wanted to say something, but I was scared. My mother controls everything. My job, my housing. If I'd spoken up, she would have destroyed me. So you stayed silent. Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He pulled out his phone and showed me photos. Maria with other foreigners, older men, different nationalities, all smiling beside her. You weren't the first. She's done this before. Different schemes, different stories, but always the same pattern. Find a lonely expat, gain his trust, extract as much money as possible, move on. I felt sick. How many? I don't know exactly. At least 4 that I know of over the past 10 years, maybe more. He put his phone away. She doesn't see people, Dr. Ivan. She sees opportunities, resources, transactions, and Valentina learned from her. They're a team. Why are you telling me this now? Because I can't live with it anymore. Because you're a good man who didn't deserve this. And because I want you to know it wasn't your fault. You didn't miss any red flags. There were no red flags to miss. They're professionals. I sat back in my chair. Professionals. That's what my marriage had been. A professional operation. Does Father Domingo know? No. He's been fooled too. My mother donates to the church. She volunteers. She's beloved in the community. No one suspects. And the external donations? The money raised using my name? All in offshore accounts. Untraceable. She's been doing this long enough to know how to hide it. He leaned forward. Dr. Ivan, you should leave. Go back to London. There's nothing for you here, but more pain. I know. I stood. Thank you for telling me, Ernesto. I know it wasn't easy. Will you report her? I already tried. The lawyers say there's not enough evidence. She'll get away with it. He nodded slowly. She always does. He looked up at me, and I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. For what it's worth, I think my mother underestimated you. She thought you'd just disappear quietly. But you didn't. You fought. You asked questions. You cared enough to find the truth. That's more than the others did. I wish I'd fought sooner. We all wish that, Dr. Ivan. We all wish that. I left the cafe and walked through Manila one last time. I saw the streets differently now. Not as charming, not as welcoming, just as streets. The place where I'd lost everything. I went back to the apartment and packed my belongings. 2 suitcases. That's all I had. Everything else, all the things Valentina and I had bought together, I left behind. I didn't want any of it. I didn't want any reminders. Before I left, I visited Father Domingo. I told him everything. He was horrified. He promised to investigate. He promised to confront Maria. I didn't believe him, but I appreciated the gesture. Father, do you believe in redemption? I asked before leaving. Of course. It's the foundation of our faith. What about for people who don't want redemption? People who see no need to change? He was quiet for a moment. That's a harder question. Redemption requires repentance. If someone doesn't believe they've done wrong, they can't be redeemed. They can only be stopped. And if they can't be stopped, then we pray for their victims, and we move forward. That's all we can do. I thanked him and left. At the airport, I deleted Valentina's number, blocked Maria, blocked Ernesto. I erased every contact related to that family. I boarded the plane to London. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I just felt empty, hollow, used up. The flight was 16 hours. I didn't sleep. I just stared out the window, watching the world pass below, thinking about how much I'd lost. Not just money, but belief, in people, in love, in my own judgment. When I landed in London, Arjun was waiting at the airport. He didn't say I told you so. He just hugged me. Welcome home, Ivan. I don't have a home anymore. You have me. You have your flat. You have your life. That's home enough. We drove to my flat in Kensington. It looked exactly as I'd left it over a year ago. Anna's books still on the nightstand, her perfume still in the bathroom. I'd spent a year trying to escape this museum, and now I was back. But something was different. I wasn't the same man who'd left. That man had been desperate, lonely, looking for a reason to keep living. This man was wiser, sadder, but also clearer. I sat in my chair, the one Anna used to sit in while she read, and I let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. The grief, the shame, the rage, the loss. I cried for the first time since confronting Valentina. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I'd been before I met her. The man who still believed in goodness. The man who trusted his own judgment. Over the next few weeks, I tried to rebuild. I reconnected with old colleagues. I went to medical lectures. I volunteered at a free clinic in East London. I tried to reclaim my identity as a healer, not a victim. But it was hard. Every time I helped someone, I wondered if they were using me. Every time someone thanked me, I questioned their motives. Valentina and Maria had broken something fundamental in me. The ability to trust, the ability to believe in human kindness without suspicion. One evening, Arjun came over for dinner. We sat in my small kitchen, eating takeaway curry, talking about everything except the Philippines. Finally, he asked the question I knew was coming. Ivan, do you regret it? Going there? Meeting her? I thought about it for a long time. I regret the money. I regret the lies. I regret being so desperate that I ignored every warning. But do I regret trying? Trying to find connection? Trying to build something after Anna? No, I don't regret that, because loneliness would have killed me eventually. At least this way, I'm still alive. Damaged, but alive. That's a very wise answer. I'm a very expensive kind of wise. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I gave them £475,000, Arjun. But you know what I really gave them? My trust, my hope, my belief that I could be loved again. And that's the part I'll never get back. Money can be re-earned. Trust can't. He nodded. What will you do now? I'll keep going. What else can I do? I'll work at the clinic. I'll see my patients. I'll live my life. But I'll live it differently, more carefully, more skeptically. I looked at him. I'll never marry again. I'll never let anyone that close again. The cost is too high. Ivan, don't let them take that from you. Don't let them make you bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm realistic. There's a difference. I poured us both more tea. You know what the worst part is? It's not the money. It's not even the betrayal. It's the realization that I was nothing more than a transaction. Valentina didn't marry me. She acquired me, like a business asset. And when I'd been fully liquidated, she discarded me. That's what I can't forgive. Not the theft, the reduction, being made into a thing instead of a person. Arjun reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're not a thing, Ivan. You're my friend. You're a brilliant doctor. You're a good man who made a mistake. That's all. A mistake. An expensive mistake. Yes, but still, just a mistake. You're allowed those. I appreciated his kindness. But I knew the truth. This wasn't a mistake. This was a consequence. A consequence of grief, loneliness, and the desperate human need to matter to someone. I'd wanted to belong so badly that I'd ignored reality. I'd chosen comfort over truth, and I'd paid the price. Now, sitting in my London flat, staring at Anna's photograph on the mantel, I finally understood what I'd lost when I tried to replace her. Not money, not time, but the part of me that believed love was possible after loss. Valentina and Maria had stolen that, and no lawyer, no justice system, no amount of time would give it back. I still live in London. I still work at the clinic 3 days a week. I still have dinner with Arjun every Sunday. I still wake up alone. But I've made peace with that, because alone is better than used. Alone is better than being someone's opportunity. I think about Valentina sometimes. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. Probably not. I was just a job, a successful one. I think about Maria too. I wonder how many other men she's targeted. How many other lonely widowers have wired their life savings to her accounts. I reported her to Interpol, to the Philippine authorities, to anyone who would listen. Nothing happened. She's still there, still charming, still stealing, still beloved in her community. And I'm here, 72 years old, 475,000 pounds poorer, but wiser, sadder, and finally, brutally honest with myself. I gave them everything, my money, my trust, my heart, and they gave me nothing but a lesson I never wanted to learn. That some people don't see you as human. They see you as a resource. And once that resource is depleted, you're worthless to them. That's the truth I live with now. Not bitterness, just truth. Cold, hard, expensive truth. And if there's anything I want you to understand from my story, it's this. Loneliness makes you vulnerable. Grief makes you desperate. And desperate people make terrible decisions. I made terrible decisions. I paid for them. And I'll keep paying for the rest of my life. Not in money, but in the quiet, aching knowledge that I'll never trust anyone that deeply again. Because trust, once broken, doesn't heal. It just scars. And I'm covered in scars now. Invisible ones. The kind that only I can see. The kind that remind me, every single day, of the family I thought I'd found, and the operation I actually joined.